My talk is lifting the curtain on new worlds. As a second grader, I became fascinated with the space art in a science textbook. The otherworldly vistas painted of the moons of outer planets just excited me and made me go into the library looking for more pictures. And I started looking at everything that I could find. But these were just paintings. And I thought, well, maybe for us kids, they were just trying to jazz it up. And what do these moons, these worlds, what do they really look at? And I was really frustrated that when I looked in the World Book Encyclopedia, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and Neptune, they all looked like just, they were only shown as little dots. No detail at all. And I thought that, this was before the internet, so you couldn't go online. I thought that if I just looked hard enough in the library, that someplace there would be real pictures. And I went to the adult library. Still didn't find anything. And finally, as a second grader, I realized that telescopes could not give detailed pictures of other worlds, couldn't make them look like, even like our moon you can see up in the sky. But they didn't call this time the space age for no reason. This was the best time in history to wonder what those other worlds looked like. Because at that time, spacecraft were already taking pictures. Spacecraft, the Mariner 9 spacecraft was already at Mars. And soon my grandmother's National Geographic was filled with pictures not only of Mars, but also of its two tiny moons, of these other worlds that I wondered about, the little worlds, not just the big planets. Now, Mars moons were just potato worlds. They weren't round, and so I was curious about the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. And this inspired a lifelong love of science and art. So when I got to college, I thought, well, I love science, and I want to participate. I want to help. I want to be a part of contributing. And I heard that studying planets or the stars, astronomy, planetary science, the jobs were bad. There were too many scientists and not enough funding. But there was a lot of need for fusion power, and I thought I could do nuclear physics and study little worlds, and that way contribute to the world. And so through college, at this time as I was studying nuclear physics, the Voyager and Pioneer spacecraft went by first Jupiter. And when they went by Jupiter, they revealed those dots that I wondered about to be, you've seen the pictures, the posters that put on university science department walls that show these worlds, those fascinating worlds. That the closest moon to Jupiter, Io, has hot volcanoes spewing out sulfur volcanism. And then there's Europa, the best chance for life, complex life in the solar system, probably better than Mars, because it's got ice flows on top, cracks that look like the Arctic Ocean. And who knows but whether Europa might even have fish underneath, something Mars could never have. And similar, Ganymede and Callisto were fascinating ice worlds. And then, so I began to doubt nuclear physics a little bit. This was really exciting, new worlds. And certainly my attention got piqued as Voyager went by Saturn and went by Carl Sagan's favorite world, Titan. An orange, smog-colored moon shrouded in smog, thicker than Beijing. World that has lakes of liquid methane. And no wonder Carl Sagan and others have been inspired. Then Voyager went by Uranus and saw the cliffs of Miranda. And by the time Voyager went by the last planet and revealed the last dots of the moon's Triton, the geysers of Triton, I realized I didn't want to study nuclear physics so much, partly because the jobs weren't any better. I wanted to really take the chance and find new worlds. And I decided not just the worlds of the solar system, but worlds that had never been found, to really take a leap of faith and study exoplanets, worlds in other solar systems, worlds that we had no pictures of, and at that time there hadn't been a single exoplanet found. So I was able, after I got my PhD, to get a postdoc at Caltech to move in the direction of astronomy to study the sun, which would lead to stars, which would lead to planets. And in that year at Caltech, the first exoplanet was found with only a 3-day orbit. Surprised everybody. So I was able to go from Caltech to using a very high magnification technique at Georgia State, interferometry. But at that time, I was very curious to go into exoplanets by using the blink method, transits like eclipses. And I became fascinated with the Kepler project that hadn't been approved yet. And I decided I wanted to participate in science, that this had been my goal, to experience science, to be a part of everything that was going on. So when I got the chance to be the first astronomer in a wealthy person's global telescope, I jumped at the opportunity. This was my chance where I started doing the eclipse method, called transits. I got to meet the top people in the field, and I was on my way. One morning when I was Haleakala, with a year in Maui at the peak, with a year left to go on my assignment, suddenly I got told that my appointment would be ended early for reasons that were so funny that it led me to do stand-up comedy. And stand-up comedy was a way of going to storytelling, because I wanted to participate in science one way or the other. And if I didn't have a job to do astronomy, to do transits, to find exoplanets, I wanted to find any way. And I got some meaning that I constantly, ever since I saw as a second grader, I fantasize about little dots. And I realized that little dots being revealed, that there were 2 more planets. At that time, Pluto had just been demoted from being a planet, because Pluto was just a fuzzy dot. And I felt maybe a little bit like Pluto, being thrown out. But Pluto's demotion proved to be a boost to the other forgotten dwarf planet, Ceres. And NASA ended up sending spacecraft to both of them in years-long missions. And I would like to tell you that as I complete my struggle to get back into astronomy, in 2015, these 2 fuzzy dots, these 2 dwarf planets, will be revealed by NASA spacecraft. There are no clear pictures of Pluto or Ceres, but in 2015 they will be revealed. And just the same as I was unable to do transits, one evening as I was looking at the distribution of planets, after there had been hundreds of planets, now there's 1,000 exoplanets that have been found, I noticed something, and I emailed my wife. I've made a little discovery. There's a cliff in the distribution of planets. This cliff has the right slope. The planets are falling into the star. And this made a picture to me that was my own discovery. I was the only person on the Earth that knew that planets, that the shape of this cliff was because planets are falling into the stars. And I knew that with this discovery, that I now have a way of getting back into astronomy, just like Pluto and Ceres will be clear. I am nearly complete with a paper that just this past month I produced the equations. And just like Pluto and Ceres will be clear in 2015, with this paper, my life will be clear. And for me, this reaffirms my slogan, the participation is the purpose of science, and I'll even say participation is the purpose of life.